Great. So at the outset, I'd like to thank Dr. Jankaria and the entire Indian Express team, Express Healthcare team, to give me this opportunity. I moderated this panel last year as well, and the idea behind the panel is to see, where are we today? So everything is structured around questions, right? Who are we? Where are we? But broadly speaking, I'd like to set some context. So at the outset, what do? I run, apart from Mahajan Imaging, which is an imaging company, we have a small research group with big dreams, where we help a lot of AI companies develop, validate, and deploy a lot of these solutions that you hear about. And because of that, I think we have developed great insight into simple questions like, do these products even work? Where can they be used? I think is something that is cracked. I think we all know where they can be used. I think the whole replacement issue is also settled. But today I'd like to talk about, and of course, the panel will share their thoughts on where is AI today. So before going to the panel, just a little bit of more context setting. So as imagers, as imaging companies, as radiologists, as radiology providers, we essentially do three things in the imaging workflow, right? We image, so we acquire images, right? Image acquisition, that is the core, that's the starting point. Before that is administrative, we are not going to get into that right now. So image acquisition, you do an MRI scan, you get raw data, you get raw case space data that gets reconstructed using a bunch of algorithms, and you see DICOM images, right? So that is image acquisition. Then there is post-processing, right? There are measurements, there are, if you do a coronary angiogram, there's somebody there, generally a tech, who does post-processing, who does the volumetry, who does a lot of things, and prepares the images for the final aspect, which is diagnosis, right? Which is what most people in the room do. So the first and second, which is image acquisition and post-processing, AI is already there. We don't even see it. We don't even care, right? We want a good-looking image. We want easy post-processing. Like a lot of the stuff that was part of the Sonoscape, very, very impactful video that they have. A lot of it is not diagnostic per se. It is measuring. And those are things where AI it's percolated. Many people don't even know that it's AI. Like when you process a coronary angiogram on a relatively advanced workstation, you're using some kind of AI there. It's not branded AI. Why? Because the amazingness of AI is that it should be able to emulate or replicate the cognitive process. Right, which is when you look at an image and you spot a finding and then you put it into context and you give a diagnosis. That is what we will focus on for most of the discussion, because that is most relevant, because image acquisition and post-processing, it is going to keep happening and it's already there. So I'd like to start with Balaji, who's kind of the technocrat on the group. He did his PhD from London in image processing. He's one of the, besides being a CEO of a company, he's also one of the foremost researchers in radiomics across the world. So Balaji, why don't you give the audience some insight into what is the difference between radiomics and deep learning and machine learning and AI? Like, they're used interchangeably many times. So can you, very quickly, just give a brief outline on how these things are different and how they are seen?
Sure. First and foremost, thank you so much for inviting me here. I think it's quite pertinent that one understands the subtle differences between these different terms used quite frequently. So radiomics, that's where Texrad particularly comes into, is a science which, as the word gives out, radiology and omics. So it looks at features, characteristics, quantifiable characteristics, which has some biological rationale to it, but which is derived from your CT, MR, PET scans, and so on. So it's more handcrafted features, and texture forms a significant form or part of the radiomics process, where texture, when I refer to is patterns on the images, which is trying to emulate what a radiologist does. Now, most of y'all are radiologists in practice. You'll look at an image, you'll report whether a tumor appears heterogeneous, appears homogeneous, speculated, and so on. The key word there is appears. It's a very subjective process. So radiomics tries to emulate what a radiologist does, but provides an objectivity to it. So independent of your background, experience, education, the idea is we can bring about objectiveness, repeatability, reproducibility, and so on. And then that has applications in clinical practice, from the prognostication, treatment.
So how is that different from AI?
So AI is more in terms of a black boxish approach. You put something in, you get something out. The black box is neural networks. It's trying to emulate your brain, basically. And I say it's a black box approach because there are a lot of weightings done in. So the weightings there may not have a biological intuitiveness. So one of the cons of AI is that it's a very black box approach, whereas most of y'all have spent zillions of years studying medicine, spending those.
You're not that old, yeah.
I'm saying from a just a collective perspective that you spend time learning the biology and so on, whereas AI gives you an answer but does not tell you how that answer came about. And I think that is an important aspect. So there are pros and cons to all these different methodologies. Machine learning is more it's use of machines, but more in terms of developing classifiers. Like you have these different mathematical classifiers, which helps you classify a disease from a control and so on. So there are different classifiers, like you must have heard about random forest approach, support vector systems, and so on. So these are all the different aspects of image processing, quantification, where radiology is heading towards.
So if I was to summarize then, Balaji, basically radiomics is a field where you define what the computer should look at, you define the area, you define the features, and on the basis of that, diagnosis made. They may be predefined features that have been defined by researchers globally, but the idea is to objectivize
the idea is
the observation.
Are the experts, they draw a region or they have some semi-automated, automated way of segmenting it.
Yes.
This is a quantification describing that region in an objective fashion.
Correct. And in deep learning or AI, the way, at least in this particular context, if there was an X-ray and on every X-ray with pleural effusion, you had a star at the corner, right? The AI would just start looking at the star at the corner and you would never find out.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing. So that's what the black box is essentially what it means, and that's what the attempt is to open up by a lot of people.
Yeah. So a combination of the two could be a win-win situation.
Yes, got it.
Where there's an intuitive aspect fed to an AI model, then you are a bit more confident that there is some rationale.
Got it. No, I'm sure there'll be many questions. Just moving on to Dr. Namita. Ma'am, so your group, Columbia Asia Hospitals, has been one of the early adopters of AI. In fact, Columbia Asia had a paper with the Cure.ai at RSNA 2017, and that was one of the first papers on chest X-ray. Ma'am, what has been your? Are you using Cure.ai's algorithm or any other algorithm in your practice?
So we've been working on the developing the algorithm since 2016, and therefore we came to that conclusion in 2017. Now the place that we are, we have realized that the algorithm works to quite an extent. We've trained it on 9 different abnormalities, so it picks up normals from the abnormals and can actually classify the abnormals into 9 different pathologies, as in abnormalities that you see on the X-ray. And we are satisfied with the results. So what we are going to do is, come August, we are trying to incorporate it into our PACS system. So what it will do is give us first reads. It will be an excellent audit tool for X-rays. The thing, though, is that we've trained it on PA or AP radiographs, which are non-ICU and non-pediatric. So it comes with that caveat. But on these X-rays, it has performed phenomenally well with a sensitivity of almost 92 to 99% for different abnormalities, and a specificity for normal for most 98%. So if it says that it's normal, there's a 98% chance that it's normal.
So are you willing to sign off a report as normal without looking at the image?
What I'm willing to do is ignore those x-rays for later. Because I work in a hospital where x-rays keep getting done round the clock, but there are MRIs, there are CTs, there are ultrasounds, we're running around scrambling to accommodate everybody. And like it or not, there are x-rays which don't get looked at the same day. So if the AI tool throws up to me the abnormals, I will make sure that those are read, and if anything is critical, then that is communicated, or the patient's treatment can get started accordingly.
So,
if it says it's normal, I can put that for later.
So ma'am, essentially what you're saying is that come August, all Columbia Asia X-rays, OPD, non-pediatric X-rays are going to be pre-read by AI, and if the AI says it's a normal X-ray, it will go to the bottom of the pile. And so Dr. Gune, what if it misses something and it went to the bottom of the pile and the patient suffered?
See, that was going to happen statistically anyway. We are talking of large volumes. For example, I had to come here, and maybe last evening there was a pile of 20 X-rays waiting. None of them were marked by the clinician as urgent, and they would have waited till Monday or till someone else looked at it today. The advantage of something like, so remember, they would anyway have been looked at later, right? There's someone from a big hospital who told me that they generate 1,000 X-rays in South India per day. The world incidentally generates 2 billion chest X-rays per annum. Who's going to read all these X-rays, right? Incidentally, the institute that I'm talking about in South India, no one reads the X-rays. They go directly to the clinic. They are unread. I mean, I don't know what they maybe for insurance purpose they may be simply marking those. But to come back to the point, therefore, this is an add-on. See, now you have a tool where without human intervention, there is some prompt saying that before you leave for the day, or before you leave for lunch, or before you leave for tea, why don't you look at these 2, 3, 4 X-rays first? And what I'm saying for X-rays is also true for other modalities. We are just taking X-rays as an example.
Yeah.
So to prioritize, surely, yes.
So and we'll take some questions on that, I'm sure. Also, anybody who has any thoughts, please do chime in. This is supposed to be a bilateral discussion. Sir, please.
I would add to what Balaji said. It's not just objectivizing, but I thought it's also having things which are not visible to you.
Yes, definitely. Definitely, yes. So subtle changes which you may be able to pick, sir, but someone else may not be, can be picked up. But essentially, yeah, so there is a lot of information. There is so much data. Manufacturers are doing a phenomenal job with some very exquisite images coming out. You don't have the time to look at them, and there is the subtleties which need to be picked up.
It's not just a question of not having the time. What you say
also the subtleties, yeah.
There is in that digital data information which is simply not visible to the human eye, full stop. Now, these features, if they can be extracted and correlated with pathology.
Sir, I would like to restrict our discussion to not what can be or will be, because that was the explicit task that was given to me to, kind of paint a picture of. So August is here, right? Like August is next month. So I would consider that to be today.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, many of us, when we report a CT or MR or whatever, we have that gut feeling, which is beyond logic or beyond a scientific. How is AI going to help? I don't know anything about AI much, but I'm asking, where is that gut feeling going to come? That yes, this is not going to be neurocystic psychosis, it's going to be TB, and my gut feeling says that. So how is AI going to help the gut feeling?
That's going to come from you, ma'am, because the AI is going to get trained on the data which you tagged, which you curated. So the AI is going to learn not only your knowledge, it's going to learn your gut feeling, it's going to learn your biases. The deep learning networks are going to learn typically you, because you are the data, you are giving the data, your annotations are going to be used for training the data. So it's going to learn exactly what you are doing today.
And that's where, so obviously with you coming into the picture, it's you as a subject. It's a subjective thing. So that's where the radiomic features, as Dr. Sharma was saying as well, can pick up the subtle features which may be adjunct to your visual impression. So it gives you that additional features which can all be taken into consideration.
So Ananga, just addressing your question, the gut feel has to be at some point of time supported by histopathology or something. So the question here is about ground truth. What is the ground truth that you fed into building an algorithm, and the algorithm will become as good as the ground truth that you feed it. I mean, we presented a paper at the ECR where 4 radiologists, and good radiologists, I count myself in that, but read chest x-rays and had such diverse views. And so your gut feel may be different from my gut feel, may be different from someone else's gut feel. And really, frankly, if you ask me, we are trying, or AI is trying, to do away with that gut feel and get to reality, which is backed by something which is, whatever be. Ultimately, everyone is trying to get histopathology or maybe follow-up scans to show that it was tuberculoma and not cystic circus. And it's the ground truth which will determine how good or bad the algorithm is. And the winners will be those. And there are thousands of chest X-ray algorithms being built. And there are many that, our group is actually evaluating and validating. And you see such diverse variations in them. And maybe at some point of time, one algorithm may be good at the ICU setting, another may be good for infections, some other may be good for nodules, and maybe it's be 5 algorithms running, and you will get at the end, using another AI, the average out of that, and maybe that is how it will work. But the ground truth is very important. Our impressions, and our we should actually be doing away with that.
Yeah. So I think I'd like to, sir, please.
Yeah, besides the trial which came into the discussion, that differentiating a normal from abnormal, other thing probably the application which radiomics and these sciences will bring out is the individualized medicine. Like what I'll take it further to what Dr. Rajesh Sharma used in the previous discussion, that one size doesn't fit all. That heterogeneity of a mass, if I am seeing, if I can segment it and individually say whether this particular thing is going to get benefited by the line of management chosen or not, will be a correct application rather than doing a triage, changing the stock or the stack, postponing the workload. It is not the aim for which the AI and radiomics is coming in. The radiomics basically is coming probably to radiogenomics, those kind of things. Probably that should be the idea.
No, absolutely, sir. So there are 2 ways, that one can think about all of these applications, right? One is things that, humans can do, but machines can do much better. For example, like, you can read chest X-rays, there's no denying, but potentially you cannot read 100 chest X-rays in 1 minute, but a computer system can. And then the other aspect is, sir, what you are alluding to, which is things that humans just cannot do. Like we are working on some crazy things like getting a PET image from a CT image. That is something that human beings just cannot do, right? And radiogenomics is another field, like predicting EGFR status from a chest CT. It's impossible for human beings to do it. So I'd like to pose my next question to Dr. Amit. So Amit is a strange person. So he's a radiologist. He's an entrepreneur. He runs his own teleradiology company. He's also now founded a AI company called Deeptek, and he's also a professor at DY Patil in Pune. Amit sir, how do you deal with this ground truth problem? Because this ground truth problem is where we are today. This is the day we are able to have good data to train these algorithms is the day we'll be able to move, further, move beyond the normal abnormal. There is no EGFR correlated CT data from Indian patients. It just Tata has some, but it's just inaccessible. So how do you deal with that, Dr. Kharat?
So I believe that we have mounds and mounds of data, but all of them are lying in silos and not available to anyone. What actually we do as a startup, and I believe that any startup will be as good as its ground truth. So if the companies, whether they are big companies which are working in this space or startups which are working in this space, they have to spend immense amount of time developing and annotating their data. And as good you do that, that good will be your product or service what you're going to give to your end customer. And the challenge for radiology services is just one part of the silo. There's a pathology and then there is the entire temporally, if you look across the patient spectrum from the clinical outcome. And that kind of data sets, probably I don't see many institutions are having that data set. And it's a very costly kind of a data set to manage, to understand the final outcome for any particular patient. So I believe that that will come gradually. But that should not stop anyone from working in this space. That is automatically going to happen. People will be experts coming from the space of pathology, will be experts coming from the different spaces, and then the dots will start joining, and then we have an entire solution in space. I believe these are just the starting innovating years for this. Gradually, we have to look for a very long-term perspective, say a decade or so before this product actually matures and starts coming into practice.
So just quick show of hands, although this is a very biased audience, but who all here stores all their data, imaging and reports? 30%.
No, which is a biased audience.
40.
It should be less than 1%.
Yeah, it's a biased. Yes, please, Bhavan.
So I think there's a little bit of a schizoid personality thing that I suffer from when it comes to AI. So, suddenly I think I'm very optimistic, and then the next 6 months I'm very pessimistic. I had a long chat with Amit and his colleagues as well. And I have a feeling, and it comes from reading and understanding, that we are at serious crossroads as far as AI is concerned. Because ground truth, as you rightly said, is a huge problem, because you also have to define ground truth. So it's not just availability of ground truth. We don't even know in many instances what the real ground truth is. So that's one. But two is, technologically, AI has reached a dead end in terms of the basic. I mean, the guys who invented narrow AI, like Hinton, are turning around and saying, I'm not even sure what I did was right and I don't see anything further. And all the AI experts say, wait, this is it. Technology's reached a complete dead end. So you work with what you have, which means you will find these narrow solutions to narrow problems, and which is what we're doing. Chest X-ray is the only one where we're getting somewhere. Everywhere else, and of course, you did that Lancet paper, but you're like, one little problem, one little solution, somewhere it will get incorporated, hopefully sometime. But if you're not going to have your inherent physics data or physics algorithms or the back projection, etc., advancing, you're done. What more can you do? So I don't know if you guys have a perspective on this, but it looks like there's a lot of hype. It looks like some of this will come into market, but it also looks like we're reaching a dead end very soon.
So, Vasanth, you work with 20-25 groups across the world. Have you seen anything that works or that can cross the threshold as Sir described?
So, there are three important questions which we need to answer today. I presume that all in the audience want to know that. Number one, does deep learning works as good as me? The clear answer is yes. But the caveats are, as Sir rightly pointed out, it works in narrow domains. So there are certain networks which can diagnose, say, lung nodule on a chest X-ray, or pick up a nodule on a chest X-ray as good as 3 radiologists consensus, the best radiologist consensus. It can do as good as that. But the same network might fail on other areas of the same chest X-ray. So in narrow areas, at least in the X-ray domain, the networks are doing really good. It's as good as the best radiologist today. So looking forward, so what's the way forward? How is it going to pan out? So one of the few ways which we see and which we discuss quite extensively is, people are thinking about using ensemble of models. Already there are companies which have an ensemble of models running in the background of their algorithm, which can kind of cover all the problems in a particular domain and give a good output in almost all the classes. So the way we see this problem is we have to need to curate these algorithms, because there is a lot of noise there out there. There are a lot of companies. Every day there's new company coming out with FDA clearance, CE clearance, and a lot of media hype is being built around what they can do and what they are achieving in controlled test settings. When I say controlled test settings, what I mean is typically these AI companies test their algorithms in a retrospective data from a single hospital and claim that they have good accuracy against a set of radiologists. But when they go to deploy it in a different setting, they will fail miserably. So in controlled settings, they are doing really good, and there is not really much prospective or real-time validation that's being done to test how these algorithms, which have so much hype around, are performing in a real setting. So we have the privilege, or because of the organization which we have built, to test numerous algorithms in the same domain. Like we have tested at least 5 algorithms that work typically on chest X-ray only, and what we found is there is not a single algorithm which can cover all the spectrum of abnormalities in the chest X-ray. But if you kind of ensemble those algorithms to this single modality, they kind of come out nearly 100% good. So is that the way forward? I don't know. How would the business model turn around? Or will the hospitals be willing to pay each of these companies for reading a single chest X-ray? I really don't know. But at least from the technical side, I don't see, sir, the technology has reached a dead end. There is a lot of new developments coming each and every day.
The applications have not reached a dead end. Your basic fundamental method of doing AI, your multi-layered neural network and back projection is all there is.
That's true.
There is nothing further that you can do with it. AI reached a dead end in the 70s, 80s, then Intel did this whole back projection, so you've got this whole thing coming and it's ended there. There is nothing further at the basic physical level. So the way I see it, we've been using unfolded rib view, right? We've been doing that now for 3 years, we've published, we've done all that. That's AI. We didn't even know it was AI. Unobtrusively on our workstation, unfolded rib view has been going on. CT-FFR is now being done using AI. Unobtrusively will give me the numbers that I need to decide whether the stenosis is relevant or not. Those applications work brilliantly, will work, and may not even need significant validation. It's when we're talking about these X-rays and CT scans and somebody saying, I'll give you, tell you whether your liver is normal or abnormal, it's never going to happen.
No, so that's absolutely right. In fact, so that's why the context setting, like acquisition, post-processing, is going to be done. We won't even know it's a most CT low dose reconstruction today uses some elements of neural nets and deep learning. You don't care. You just want a nice looking DICOM image that you can make a diagnosis on, right? But one very pertinent thing Vasanth said, Namita, I'll ask you this question. Will you be paying for the algorithm August onwards? Because that's one thing that is a clear, because probably teleradiology companies today will report a chest X-ray in like 20 rupees, 25 rupees, I think, if not lesser. Then how do these companies become sustainable? Or Dr. Gune, if you have some thoughts on that, like either of the two, I'll leave it to you guys.
Let me answer and then.
Yeah.
See, I don't know about the payment module. I think we have, we would have had to deal with them saying that if this works, we can try it out for some time in a live setting to give it further validation. So that's something that I'll have to go back and check with the people who are doing that.
Good. Dr. Gune?
Just a quick couple of thoughts too on what has gone up till now. See, let me quote from a couple of studies so that we have objective answers. November 2018, Pranav Rajpurkar, Stanford group, the whole group comes out with a paper. Now they have claimed, and in the study here, they have taken 420 chest X-ray samples. They have 6 radiologists, of which a few are specialist thoracic radiologists. Averaging the time taken by all these radiologists to report the head, they have come to an average time of about 240 minutes. The best guy did it in maybe 180 minutes. The guy who took a longer time took longer. The average is 240 minutes. The algorithm smashed through all these in 1.5 minutes flat. So that result also tells you the potential application. For example, if I'm in sub-Saharan Africa, if I'm in the interiors of India, if I'm in Philippines, if I'm in here, where I need in vans to go through remote areas and do hundreds of x-rays to screen for tuberculosis or for pre-employment checkups and things like that, then here is a good way to prioritize. These are all normal, these are all not, tuberculosis, out they go, right? These are governmental agencies, there's no pay-for-use model, it's social service. So there it could do. Point number 2, coming to this ground truth. The same group again in January 2019 has published online a data set of 2 lakh chest x-rays which have been peer validated. In other words, if they say this is pneumonia, it is pneumonia because 3, 4, 5 radiologists have validated that. So now you have 2 lakh chest x-rays and they're open source. Any one of you can brew your own algorithm and use these 2 lakh well-validated, well-labeled x-rays to kind of, do your thing.
So I just wanted to bring in one element of, we like to talk about all of these unreported x-rays, and do you think these x-rays, them being unreported, is a significant harm in the scheme of things? Anyone who wants to take this question, because that's one of the major pitches. Uday sir, please.
Can you repeat your question?
The question is that there's a lot of hype around that so many million x-rays go unreported, and now with AI coming in, they are going to get reported. Is that actually a significant enough benefit? Because somebody is looking at those x-rays. So do we think that in our hospitals today, patients are suffering because x-rays get, like the hospitals are mentioned, 1,000 x-rays a day going unreported? Is their mortality rate higher, or are the outcomes worse because those x-rays get, I'm not sure if this was a topic for the previous panel, but...
So your question has already been answered.
Sir.
Because in UK, when they hired companies to report backlogs of x-rays and pays those companies, they determined that unreported x-rays had significant findings which were missed out, and for the community the cost is high. That is why NHS is willing to pay people to report x-rays which are 2 years old or 3 years old, and they got all their x-rays reported. Right, and it's after doing due diligence that an entire government for an entire country is going to do that,
Sir.
Which is one side. As a second fundamental question, do we even know how to evaluate the accuracy of our results? Because if you are looking at 7 abnormalities and you say 99% accurate for 7 findings, there never was a diagnosis. What about the 70 other features which exist on that image? We are looking at the chest. Remember the old one. Radiographs of the chest are read in circles. The outer circles starts completely outside the chest and you get findings there, which have not been seen in clinical examination, and so on and so forth. And is receiving operator characteristics the way by which you look at accuracy? Yeah. To me, till the algorithms are built on outcomes, which is a long time duration, but that's what Watsons of this world are doing. Yeah. Right? They're not announcing I have a product today, but they are gathering data. Starting from cancer, that's where they started. Remember, Watson started with 3 cancers. It's gone to maybe 12, 18. And it's still learning. It started learning now. And that's where the individualized medicine. Because it's not only a texture or a finding, but a whole milieu which will get together to put that together.
Sir, I'll just request Dr. Bharat Agarwal that is just, yeah.
So, I'll talk more local stuff in terms of unreported X-rays. It is our responsibility as radiologists, and again going back to the previous session, like you said, clinical radiologists, to ensure that we report 100% of cases done in radiology. That's one of our relevance areas. In our hospital group, across the network of Max hospitals, we do close to 500,000 X-rays only in a year. And it is mandated because of a process we set in that unreported X-rays have to account for less than 0.5% in the goal sheet or the KRA of the head of radiology. So it is mandatory for every radiology head to ensure that all X-rays are reported. Now that's what you need to do to start with. So it's your responsibility to do it. Where AI will create value in the supply chain is being discussed already. I won't get into that. But clearly it doesn't matter what's happening outside or in the rest of the world. If we are running, and if Dr. Sharma is still here, I don't know how many unreported X-rays are there in AIIMS, but if they really want to create value of radiologists in the ecosystem, I guess even in a government hospital, you have to report 100% of X-rays. I don't know how many you'll end up reporting. I would love to know that.
Raju sir, you'd like to?
The question is addressed to me. No, offhand I don't have a figure, but I'm sure there's a very large number of X-rays which go unreported finally. I have a comment to make. Always talk about AI. Mostly, most vendors talk of very simplistic solutions like normal chest X-ray, abnormal chest X-ray. Now, in this context, I'll share an example with you. A lot of our time in GI radiology at AIIMS is spent on trying to distinguish Crohn's disease from tuberculosis on CT or MR angiography. Our gastroenterologists thought that we don't really do that good a job, and we are wrong very often. They said, why don't you talk to somebody and develop an AI algorithm for us? We talked to the IIT Delhi crew, and we shared our thoughts that this is what we want you to do, this is what we do on a daily basis. And they said, well, this is too complex a problem in the present state of evolution of AI. Go for low-hanging fruit. Now this term has gone on for too long. For the last 2 years, we've only been hearing, go for the low-hanging fruit, simplistic problems, TB, no TB on chest X-ray, normal, and definitely it has an application in that. Will it, at some point in the visible future, go to a level of solving complex problems where human beings actually face a dilemma? I am very doubtful and share Bhavin's doubts that that may not happen at least for a couple of decades more.
If I can just interject, I think we've been talking about chest X-rays. I think you're right, there are other, I'm not saying that's not an equally important problem, but there are other important issues where radiomics and others can solve, and you've got your own examples in AIIMS using that in terms of lesion classification and so on. Radiologists can use these tech in terms of, you know it's a cancer. Now what you do next, you have to give them very expensive drugs, surgery, immunotherapy and so on. You need tools to select the right candidates for right treatment. Again, going to the previous comment, which was precision medicine, individualized, personalized medicine. Because now we have a lot of treatments, new drugs and so on, but we don't know which patient would do well with that. So risk stratification and imaging, radiologists can really strengthen their armory by having tools which can complement
Balaji, sorry, I think we have just 11 minutes left and the discussion has it's very hard to stop it from going into what we can do and what we should do. So Dr. Mahajan,
I'll bring it back. Definitely AI has to solve the complex problems. But to think that AI will get better at solving it than a human radiologist, somewhere the ground truth will have to be provided. And maybe that's not impossible because biopsies are done, most of these. The thing about whether someone will pay for abnormal chest X-ray, I think when we are building these algorithms, these are not just for India, they are for the world. Indian healthcare, and we do a chest X-ray for CGHS patient at 70 rupees, in which you give the film, you give the folder, you give a report. So in India, I don't know how much of an impact it will have, and there is no excuse for any X-ray to go unreported And I think in the private healthcare scenario of this country, even the worst of us will be reporting 99.9% and not saying that 1,000 x-rays done a day and they are not reported. That's inexcusable. And that should not be the reason why AI will be used. But if these in the beginning is going to be used where commercially it will make sense for groups of hospitals or even radiology groups. In the US today, they charge anything from 25 to 50 US dollars to report a chest x-ray. Now, suppose out of the 2 billion chest x-rays that are done, half or 500 million are done in the US, and 50% we know roughly are normal. So just look at the numbers. 250 million chest x-rays at $1 a chest x-ray versus say $20 a chest x-ray, 19 into 250 million, just look at the maths. So there is a role commercially, and through all the talks that I've had with groups across the globe, the quality issue is secondary. The primary issue is, can it lower cost? And can it be quicker? Can the turnaround times be quicker? Which they will be. So there is a commercial angle to it, and that's why, over $1 billion are being spent a year on developing AI, and groups are being supported.
Thanks. So just quickly taking things forward very fast between Vasanth and Amit, can you guys, so this is a group of radiologists, these are probably the most enthused radiologists in India right now. What can they do to get involved in AI tomorrow morning?
So basically
reach out to us.
Why
I'm saying that is...
Just before you say anything, just a quick interjection. Do not ask for free data. Pay us for our data, please.
So I think sir, is it your data?
One sec, Vidur, I think to spoil it for everybody, Mahajan has raised a very important point here. I was going to come at the end of it, I don't know if there's time for that. There are a couple of interesting observations in AI which I'd like to share with everybody. I've been advising a few groups here and there. And the basic thing is the new term called Biobanks. I'm not sure if all of us are aware of that term, but it's simply your data. Whether you're a pathologist, whether you're a radiologist, it's your data. So please remember that biobanks are not to be given free. I'm telling all of these academic institutions, Anaka is here, Bhavin of course is very well versed with commerce. Incidentally, it is a $15.7 trillion GDP gain status by 2030, of which China, because of no regulations, is going to walk away with the 28% of that. So coming to the second thing after biobanks is ownership of data. Unless we make laws for that, we are not going to progress. I think quickly we need to make ownership data laws in our country to enable AI to be used effectively. And lastly, all the people concentrating on AI are doing a lot of good work, but as Bhavin said, domain specific, as Anaka said, gut feel, that is going to be very important. But more importantly, unless we as a group tend to understand that the power of the data that we have and what we can do with it, and for making it a little more exciting, because everybody wants quick stuff, like Google is collecting our data for free, you can't do anything about it. But this is our data, we can definitely do something, make laws, data ownership, things like that. But more importantly, make clinical applications that are useful in emergencies. I've been suggesting this to various groups over the years. And this is going to change your thing immediately. You'll get more attention, more spam, more youngsters are going to get involved, and then the long run can start.
Yeah. Dr. Bharat Agarwal, sir. Mike.
So I agree with Dr. Merchant's view on having laws on data ownership. But for the last 6 months, we have been struggling with this whole ownership perspective internally in our organization. Anyone willing to create value for their data should first have an extremely robust and retrievable consent process with their patients. Correct. If you don't do that, you're in trouble. So it's just a point that if you really want to get into this game, first fix your consenting process, because eventually I've had enough fights with my internal ethics committee it's an ethical issue which doesn't have a clear meaning at this point of time. So what we can do from our side is to ensure that our consenting and opting out options are very, very clear with our patients.
No, that's part of GDPR as well, which we have in Europe, which has made consenting that much more important. Even after patients are consented, the data needs to be anonymized.
So that's
very,
a give. That's a give. In spite of that, you need a very robust consenting process, even in this country.
So more importantly, you need to add structure to the data as you collect it prospectively, sir. Data without structure and curation, because curating a data or adding structure to the data is by itself an enormous task. So prospectively, in addition to consent, if you could add some kind of structure or some kind of tags to the data which you are collecting, that would be, really.
So I guess that is one thing, right? At least tomorrow onwards, make attempts to store data. That should be like the basic thing, right? And then what else?
I have a quick answer to what Dr. Mahajan just raised. So he mentioned about emergency radiology, and this has happened just in the past 2 months, that is May and June. I'm not going to take the company's names, but I'm just going to fill up on the scientific part of it. A company has received an FDA approval for a tool which diagnoses pneumothoraxes. And this is something called an edge deployment. And just a quick, what edge deployment is, that even if this is not connected to the cloud today, I'm in a remote part somewhere, there's no electricity, whatever. The black box is right here, that's edge deployment. You're deploying at the edge, right? So this is an edge deployment product. The technician shoots the X-ray, and as the X-ray is developed, there's a ping or a warning comes, you're dealing with the pneumothorax, right? So if there's no radiologist is available, then you could send it to wherever you send immediately, or at least you could take action, or some non-radiologist can have a look at it, or the radiologist in-house can have a look at it. This is a pneumothorax, right? And this is FDA approved. When you say it's FDA approved, any company in the world can put it as part of your X-ray machine, right there on the edge. Edge deployment number 2, FDA approval for intracranial bleeds and cranial traumas. Again, same scenario, a remote situation or a big situation, no radiologist available at 12 midnight for some time. Wheel in a patient, CT scan brain done.
Sir, we know what it can.
No, this is done, this is an FDA approval.
Does that mean it works?
It's like a drug development thing. I mean, unless you had the data to. And this happened just 60 days back, 35 days back. It's gonna come. So in that narrow sense, it's not going to replace me, her, or him, or anyone.
Yeah.
But the workflow will surely improve. Yes. And Dr. Merchant's concern in terms of a product for emergency use, that is surely being addressed.
To kind of sum it up, I want to address some key issues here. Number one, that the community, the developer community, the most important question they are asking us every day and now is, does it work? So we have answered that it works. And to address to Dr. Bhavin's concern that it has reached a dead end, I don't agree with that. Every day the networks, the physics behind the networks are getting improved. Yes, but they are not working on the 3D space as of now because they don't know how will the market pan out, who will be the buyers, how to go about collecting the data, curating the data. The technology-wise, the networks and new innovations are coming every day. In fact, Facebook has recently launched a neural network which can analyze video data. So the only thing that's limiting is the data issues, ground truthing issues, and how to kind of collect data, curate it, and sometimes in a little sense the computation issues. But I think it's not yet reached the dead end. It's even though there is a lot of hype, there is still a lot of hope left.
Just to add to it, so what we are basically trying to say everyone is rest assured that you're not going to be replaced anytime sooner for the next decade or so. What is going to eventually happen is all your radiology systems are going to get much more smarter and much more eager and much more agile when they talk to you.
What can they do tomorrow, Dr. Amit, for tomorrow morning?
And what you need to do tomorrow morning is you can use a solution to see how you can archive your images intelligently. So I think we have to start from the scratch, right? So we thought exactly what Vidur is thinking, and we are thinking of how to enable radiologists to do their own archiving of their own images intelligently, using the keywords what they used in their own reports. So that is one important thing which you can start using advanced solutions to archive your data, so that whenever you ask or key anything, right from your presentation for any conference to anything, they are available to you on a platter. So we have to begin right from there, and that's what I believe will be required, because you just cannot use any packs and say I have stored the images and okay, they're all there. But when you go back to that packs and try to archive an interesting case, you will not be able to, because you will not be able to get that. Now that's the area which need to be targeted. I think we believe that we have some solutions in that regard, so we will help you in that space. And I believe everyone needs to think a little bit out of the box in that way, how you store your images.
Great. So I think so we've run out of time, and this is one discussion. We've not even touched on few issues like who owns the data, whose responsibility, all those things, because otherwise it'll eat into everything else. But in summary, I wish so yesterday we had this conversation where on the education panel there was this talk about why are we still forced to, why are we tested on film where everyone reads on PACS systems and all that, but maybe 20 years down the line there'll be a similar RAD2024 2044 happening, and we might just be discussing, there'll be some PG resident here who will be saying, I don't know why they still need us to read x-rays, and they're testing us on x-rays, and there's so many other harder problems that we can solve. So with that, I'd like to sum up this panel and thank my panelists and the entire audience. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Dr. We'll leave your picture with the panel there as well. And thank you very much.